My full name is Jules Fine. I was told I was named after a grandfather, Julius, but I don't know if that's true or not. I was born March 11th, 1928, and I was born in Brooklyn, New York. I had a sister, I lost her. My sister's name was Marcella. She passed away a number of years ago. Unfortunately, she died of cancer. My mother's name was Jessie. Her maiden name was Morris, Jessie Morris. And my father's name was Morris Fine. My mother's family was German, and German Jews don't like other Jews. So they were not too happy when she brought him home. They didn't want her to marry him because he was not German. My mother was born in Brooklyn. My father came over from, I think, Latvia when he was about 4 years old. My mother died at a very early age. My mother died at 48, I think. I was 12. It was difficult for me because I missed her terribly, and she always took good care. My father originally had a shoe store, but he lost it during the Depression. He ended up owning a candy. He drove a taxi cab for a number of years, which was the only job he could get. And then he eventually opened a candy store, what they call a wet store. Wet store meaning that there's a fountain. I looked like a dog. I had no friends because I was busy working in the store. My father had nobody to help him because my mom was gone, so I was there night and day. It was not an easy life. My mother was a housewife who took care of the family. I knew one set of grandparents, but barely. They lived in Tarrytown, New York, which is Westchester County. After World War I, my grandparents left Germany. And once in a great while, we'd go up there for a weekend. But the other one, I didn't know at all. German on one side and Eastern Europe on the other, Latvian. The earliest thing I can remember is not all that early. I remember working in the candy store, chasing kids who used to sit on the newspapers, and having a very limited number of friends because I was busy working in a candy store. And my friends were all playing ball, and I had to help my dad out because I'd lost my mom, and no man can work by himself. And my sister was already at the point where she was dating, she was an older girl, and I couldn't ask her I was still a kid, so I couldn't ask her to stay to help my dad out, so I took that job. Well, I remember knickers. We all wore knickers in those days, and corduroy pants. Corduroy knickers, when you walk, they squeak, just to rub together. We always lived very nicely. They had nice buildings, but always in the back on the top floor, because that's what we could afford. But we always lived on Ocean Parkway. I went to PS 99 school. I went to Winthrop Junior High School. I was smart at one point. Back in grade school, I had a fight with a guy, met outside, and I didn't know that he fought Golden Gloves. He gave me one shot, and he stretched me out on the ground. I hit his fist with my nose so hard, it must have really hurt him. I was the average kid. I was on the bicycle squad, which meant that I used to watch the kids who came by bike. I got to watch them. I used to walk down Winthrop Street, all the Clarkson Avenue, all the way down to the school, which was a distance. Grades initially were very good, but I'm a lazy guy and I didn't want to study. So as soon as I stopped studying, my grades were just enough to pass. We were poor. My father, as I said, after he lost the business during the Depression, drove a taxi cab. I remember sometimes I'd hear him say to my mother, didn't have a good week. He came home with like $6. But he had this one woman who, for whatever reason, liked him, so she used him all the time. So he drove her around. But it was not good times. I knew my family was not rich. I had a friend whose family I thought was rich because his father was a mailman, and that was during the Depression. But if you had a job like a mailman, oh my God, that was heaven. As a young kid, I was happy. Well, I had the usual, as a young kid, I had the usual thing. I went out once in a while. I played ball. The trouble was I lost my mother at an early age. And my father, my sister was of dating age. She was 5 years older than me. So she couldn't spend too much time in the store. It doesn't work out. And she couldn't spend too much time in the store. So that left it to me. But there were times I went out and I played ball. We used to go to schoolyard. We played what they call box ball. And we played a lot of handball. I was pretty good at handball. No football. I'm not big enough. When my dad was in the store, I could leave. But I had to cover the store, help him with the store. But in addition to that, when he had to go to sleep, I mean, one man can't run a candy store. Candy stores in those days were like 20 hours a day. It opened from 6 o'clock in the morning till about midnight, maybe less than 24. But anyway, but there were times I'd go out, I'd play ball, I had friends, but it was very limited because I didn't have the same opportunity and time to put in that my friends did. But I did go out and play ball a lot. I had a better relationship with my mother than my father, but my father was working so hard. I mean, he didn't have time for me, he didn't have time for anybody. He was a good father, but it was a tough life. I went to high school at Manhattan High School of Aviation Trades because my father thought it'd be good if I learned a trade. And one of his friends' son stayed out of the service because he was an airline mechanic. So my father decided I was an airline mechanic. I would not fly or ride in any plane, car, or any mechanical instrument that I fixed. They made me repeat a class. It was 1946. They made a repeat a class because I needed to build a wing, and I was completely incompetent. A wooden wing section. So I paid this kid $1, and he built the wing for me. My grades in high school were probably C's, enough to get by. I hung out with tough kids. I remember there was a Tony, there had to be an Angelo, there was a Pat, and there's one other Jewish kid besides me. I was touched after high school. I was on the track team, and I was second best in class on the track team. My best friend, he was the best. And then they brought these big guys in from another school. That was the end, they killed us. they were professional athletes. I don't want to sound bigoted, but they were black and they were just good. They were just really good. It wasn't in high school. I was a slow learner. I've been trying to play catch a ball, according to my girlfriend, for many years, but I don't know if that's true or not. I did not attend my senior prom. It was an all-boys school, and you had to find a girl from uh, Julia Childs, I think. I don't remember. It was a high school for girls, and they used to do that, but I did not attend. I would have liked to have been more outwardly friendly, more be in groups, bigger groups. Well, that's when my mom passed. And I'd come home from school and I had to work in a store. And I used to see the other kids playing ball. I couldn't because I had to help my dad. There was nobody to help him. Once in a great while, I went on a family vacation. My big thing where I went was up to Tarrytown, New York, where my grandfather lived. Not easily. I didn't feel I had a great adolescence, and I was always working. I didn't feel I had an easy time. I saw some of the kids there. The father said, like I said, this one kid, his father was a mailman. My God, he was rich. He could walk around. He could buy a milkshake. So my mother, I was kind of scrawny and skinny. My mother used to take me to the candy store, and she'd bring an egg with her, and they'd make me a milkshake, and they'd put the egg in it. That was to make me healthy, I guess. I remember reading about World War I, the Marne, and the terrible number of deaths in battles between the Germans and the French. The English came over later. I went to college for like 2 years, something like that, at night and weekends. I went to City College and I went to NYU, which was stupid on my part because I was a veteran. I could have gone to another college, a small college in Connecticut or a place like that. But for whatever reason, I didn't do that. I studied business and liberal arts. The GI Bill paid for my college. My two best friends were Eddie and Larry. Larry Lee and Eddie Bernstein. He had a brother who was an asshole, and nobody wanted to be friendly with him, so they made me become friendly with him. But because I became friendly with him, I became friendly with Eddie and Larry. So that worked out well. I was a hanger-on. I was so shy. I wasn't with a woman until, God, I don't want to go on that. My girlfriend is here. Blessed and unblessed. I was blessed in the sense I was 18, and my draft was May 10th, 1946. The war was officially on, but of course there was no war then. So I got drafted on May 10th, and on May 15th they stopped the draft, which in a way was a blessing because I was like a mama's boy, and I had no, take care of myself that well. I went in the Army, you were on your own, and obviously I had to learn quickly. In 1946, I served for about a year and joined the reserves when I got out, and I got called back for the Korean Council. Yeah, I originally was taking basic training. When they called me up, I ended up on a troop train, and I got out. I was in Louisville, Kentucky, and then from there, they sent me. Whatever reason, they decided I belonged in the Army Air Corps. Instead, it was in the Army Air Corps. There was an Air Force, and they sent me to Texas on the Oklahoma border. Wichita Falls, Shepherd Field, Texas. And then they sent me to school in Denver, Colorado. And then they sent me to Florida. I mean, really, I didn't have tough duty at all. I was very fortunate. So it was good for me to do that, to go in the Army like that. Then I got a call back. They called up the reserve when the Korean War started. And I was all set to be called up for the technology of going to Korea. I said, oh my God, because I said I had to stay. They had me stationed in New Jersey. I can't think of the name of the camp. Anyway, in New Jersey somewhere. I was there for like 2 months. That's unusual. It's what they call a repo depot, which meant you stayed there for a couple of days in time to ship out. And I was there, and then finally I couldn't stand it anymore because I was the only fellow with my friends who was in the Army. I've been recalled. So I went in to see the first sergeant, and he said to me, "Who are you?" So I told him I was here a month. He says, "You're AWOL. We're putting you up on charges." I said, "You can't put me on AWOL. I used to make reveille every morning, and I'd hide till the afternoon. Otherwise, they put you on KP." So I used to hide for several hours. So he said, "Well, you're on the next ship going to Korea." And there was a bunch of guys. I said, "Oh my God, what did I do?" So I tell a famous story. My son laughs. I think he knows about how he was talking to me at camp. And he said, "You know, you never sent me to camp. You talk about camp. You never sent me to camp. You never sent my sister to camp. How come you went to camp? What was the name of your camp?" I said, "My name of my camp was Camp Bivouac. And I used to march 20 miles out into the field somewhere with a pack on my back and a canteen of water that I used to soak to cover so it would evaporate and make the water a little bit cooler." I left home when I went into the Army in 1946. I came back from the Army. I lived with my sister and my brother-in-law, who couldn't have been better for me. They were nice. My brother-in-law was such an easy guy. How he put up with me, I don't know. I mean, they came home from the honeymoon. I'm waiting the door to greet them. And, I mean, that takes courage. And a separate bedroom. My first job when I came home from the Army, I worked in an office doing paperwork. Did not enjoy that, no. My next job was continuation of working one office job to another office job. Eventually, my sister had a friend who worked for Dun & Bradstreet, and she was the secretary. She got me a job in what was called the Mercantile Claims Division. That wasn't regular, it was Dun & Bradstreet, but really was nothing more than a collection service. And I used to sell a contract for $35 a year and get a percentage of whatever was collected. I was very successful at that. And as a matter of fact, I once wrote up a company that dealt only in letters of credit. Why they would buy this, I don't know, but they did. And and also I wrote up a dentist. And my boss comes back with the contract, and he says, "We can't take this." I said, "Why?" He says, "Doctors and dentists are deadbeats. You can't collect anything from them." So I said, "Well, what's that got to do with me? You didn't tell me this before I sold them." "Well, we can't accept the contract." I said, "Then I quit." He said, "You're going to quit a job? You're doing so well, you're going to quit a job?" He said, "If you're going to screw me on something like this, a minor thing, what else are you going to screw me on? I'm never going to go anywhere with this company." I said, "No, I quit." And I did. After my main job was, I got into I was what they call a freight solicitor. I try to get people to use trucking companies that I represent in shipping stuff all over the country. I went to work for Allstate Insurance, and I did very well with them. And I built up a good book of business. And the beauty of it was you got renewals. You didn't have to work. Like at the start of the year, I knew in advance how much money I was going to start with because I had already built up this book of business. So that was great. That was wonderful about the insurance business. I had a habit of being a Democrat. So I did vote. One time I voted for Nixon because I thought he did such a good job going to China with his first term that I voted him for the second time. When I voted him for the second time, that was probably, if you didn't want him back, have me vote, because he really lost everything when I voted. I voted Republican sometimes, mainly Democrat. But this Republican Party is not the Republican Party that I know. This Republican Party, according to me, is a far right group of lunatics from Oklahoma and God knows where else, who come up with stuff that is just terrible. My wife's full name was Helene Edith Ginsburg, and she told me she spelled with a Z and a U. She liked me because she wouldn't give a spell it right. Most people spelled it differently, but hers with a Z and a U, which was very important to a German family, I guess. So she gave me her real name. I met her because my friends wanted to go to this dance, which was a dance at a Jewish center, but we didn't go in because you went in, you had to pay. So we stood outside. And she was also standing outside. And I met her, 3 other girls and my 3 friends, and we really hit it. We really hit it. She's a wonderful woman. And to prove it, I took her to Coney Island, and I bought her a hot dog and a soda, which I didn't normally do. On our first date, I tried to make out, not successfully, in the back of a car. I had an old car, and my friend had a better car than mine because he had it was like you remember the bench, not a bench seat, with the seat went all the way across, and we used to take out his seat and lay it on the ground. I held back. I was in a rush. And her parents were getting a little worried because I told her she's no spring chicken anymore. So how these other guys missed out on her is beyond me. I don't know how they possibly missed out on her. About a year after I got married. I lived on Crook Avenue, 44 Crook, I think it's 44 Crook Avenue, which is a little street there in Brooklyn near Caton Avenue, and it ran from Ocean Avenue to the parade grounds where the kids play ball. We moved to Rio in 1990, right on the beach. Wasn't bad. Moved to Florida in about 95, something like that. I now reside in Delray Beach, Florida. Unfortunately, with her death, I was so in love with her. I went into hibernation. I just sat and cried. I couldn't stop crying. I still miss it to this day. I go past the picture, I see it, and I still cry. She had Alzheimer's. It was a family trait, evidently. I was very, very, very fortunate. I got a wonderful, wonderful girl. Woman in the world, mother and friends. She had a million friends. She was the most outgoing person I've ever met in my life. She played tennis, and she played with a couple of girls, and they said, she went to kick. She just liked to kid around on the court, but they were serious about it. And they told me, the best part of playing with your wife. And I said, what? They said, just walk into the courtyard to the tennis courts with her. she was such fun and laughing, having such a good time, having such a good time. Just to be with her was fun. And I was fortunate that I'm holding up a picture right now of Helene and I, my wife Helene and I. And as I said, she was such a wonderful, she had a million friends. I never met anybody as outgoing as she was. Everybody wanted to be with her. Always laughing, always talking. And some people would call and say, oh boy, what, you're a yenta. But they said, no, you're not a yenta, you're just curious. She loved people. She was one of these people who loved people. And that's a tremendously wonderful quality to have. Because when you love people, they love you. She had so many friends. Everybody wanted to be with her. And I had her morning, noon, night. I came home from work. I couldn't wait to get home, just so I could be with her. And she let me do the cook. She was very kind to me. I liked to cook, and she wasn't a great cook, so she let me do the cooking for her, which I thought was very kind of her. I never realized I could be so happy, but I didn't realize it at the time. I realize now. My son's name is Howard, and my daughter's name is Jule. And Jody was born in 1955, and Howard, 58. And Howard was born in 1960. I was out working, and they called me to come to the hospital. And I had an assumption it's going to be a boy. There was never any doubt in my mind it was going to be a boy. So the doctor said, look, congratulations, Mr. Fine, you have a lovely little girl. I said, no, I don't. He said, what do you mean you don't? I said, I'm having a boy. He says, you got a girl. I said, are you kidding me? They must have switched babies. I'm having a boy. I couldn't believe it, not having a boy. The boy came late. Scared to death. How am I going to support them? I always want to make sure my family is taken care of. My daughter was not an easy girl. She was tough. And I remember one time we went away for the weekend. I said, don't have any parties in the house now. I came home and the house was destroyed. There was a hole in the wall. Howard claimed they stole his money. And I walked down the street and I grabbed her by the scruff of her neck and I dragged her home. She said, I'm leaving. I said, tell me where you're going so I can send you your mail. And she went back to Rochester, New York, where she met the love of her life, a wonderful, wonderful guy, her husband, Tom. And she's a wonderful daughter, and she's a wonderful woman now, and a wonderful mother. And Howard has a wonderful son. He has two stepdaughters. Diane was married before, and she had 2 children by the previous marriage. Wonderful to have a son that remembers everything. And my wife used to say she was so proud of both kids. But Howard, she said, he had a math brain. Her father was very smart in math. And he became an accountant and he became very successful. And not like the father said, oh, my son, but he was very successful. And he became a partner in one of the best-sized firms, and he did very well and took care of his kids. And to me, the family always came first. You know, when we lived in Seaford, which was a house, originally we had an apartment, and then we moved to Seaford. The kids grew up and went to school there. And when I got out of the house, I decided to sell. But to get back to Seaford, we had the parties out there. We had a lot of friends, and it was a nice community. Like each block was its own community. It wasn't like your whole area. It was each block or 2 blocks where we met with friends all the time. And the kids enjoyed life over there. I hope they did. Well, the best thing is being there for them and watch how they succeed in life and how they raise their families. The frustrating thing is when they didn't listen, and Helen used to say to me, "Why are you so hard on them?" I said, "Why don't you stick up for me once in a while?" So, yeah, but no, they're good. They're both good kids. I had friends who unfortunately had terrible experiences with children. Wonderful. The best thing is having them and watching them leave. Because you have to, the grandparents have a choice. The parents, like when we were parents, they're wonderful kids, but sometimes you're like a little place. So, but when they came with the kids, they couldn't get enough of them. And then after a while, I said, okay, it's time to go. I have wonderful grandchildren. Each one has their own little thing that they're good at, or not, strength, I should say. And they're good kids. No problems with them. We never had problems with being called to school, or with trouble, or drugs, or anything like that. So I'm very well blessed by him. Daughter Jody's children, which will be my grandchildren. The oldest one is Brian, who's had problems. The problems that he had was that health problems, but fortunately everything turned out well. The middle one is Matthew. He was the athlete of the crowd. Brian was that athlete also. He was stronger than Brian, so he played football. And Sean it was funny. Sean, besides, I really think he was the brightest of the three. But they were all smart, but I think he was the brightest. So he came home one time and he said, "Hey," he said to Matthew, the middle boy, "Hey, I saw a friend of yours." "Yeah, where'd you see him?" "Playing volleyball." And Matthew was very athletic. He says, "I don't have any friends that played volleyball," insinuating that he plays football and that kind of thing. Sean was always one of the brightest in the class. He was in whatever the rapid advance, whatever they called it in those days. But he was always one of the brightest kids in the class. And he let you know it too. And I used to say to the other two boys when they teased him, I'd say, someday you may be working for him. And they said, no, dear Grandpa, we won't work for him. But they all ended up in Wegmans. Believe it or not, the whole family works in Wegmans, including Tom. As I said, Tom does the security. Wegmans, boy, he had his own guns, but Wegmans insisted on buying a gun for him. And he carried it when he went out with him. Howard's actual child is John, and he has a stepgirl from Diane's previous marriage with their family. They're lovely girls. And Dana and Amanda, two girls. Jonathan's met this girl, Alex, who's a lovely girl. Happily going to be married. He better be happily going to get married because I gave him a very large engagement ring that came from the family. We used to travel a lot when my wife was alive. We went on many cruises. We went to Hawaii. We went to Israel. We went to England. Went to Italy, to the tour of Italy. We like traveling. Can I tell you my second greatest adventure? Meeting Barbara. She was standing on a corner with a sign that says, "I'll work for food." No. Where did I meet you, Barbara?
In Emerald Point.
Oh, in Emerald Point, yes. It was a cast of thousands because there was no men around, and I was one of the few. So it was a cast of thousands. I was very selective. I'm hobbyless. I like to read. I like to watch TV. I play tennis, and Howard came to visit. And I lorded over the fact that I always knew until one day something happened and he whipped me badly. And I didn't want to play tennis with him anymore because he whipped me badly. But it was fun games. I'm a great historian. I know. I like to read about Churchill. I like to read about all the wars. I love Sherlock Holmes. I can repeat stories on Sherlock Holmes. Now I'm living in Emerald Point. a full-time basis, and they call me the soup Nazi because I make soup. I make great chicken soup. I make good soup. I make mushroom. Well, I have about 5 different kinds. And I have one that's quite spicy, but nobody seems to like that. And I give it out to all my friends. So they call me the soup Nazi. Where's my soup? What happened to my soup? I never figured my life out ahead of time. I never really gave it a thought. I don't know how my life was going to turn out, but it turned out to my satisfaction. I think raising 2 children to be good kids, good parents, successful financially. My daughter Jody is very astute. She's a bright girl. I always said she wasn't as bright as Howard, but she was running around all the time. She had friends who were in the boyish stage. But she was more interested in having a good time. And she'd go to school and Howard would come home and squeal on her. He'd say, hey, Jody, fine, come up to the office. Well, they sent a note home that she had cut class. Where were you? So, but she managed to get through school. She had no problem writing them together. So Jody, when she graduated, she got in corporate travel. She arranged cruises and trips, and she was doing it full time working for this man that I'm too happy with. He was a very generous man, and he actually brought in business for him that he never gave any kind of commission. So eventually she left him, and she didn't want to work full time at that point. So she worked part-time for herself out of the house, and she went on cruises. She took Tom, my son, with a lot of problems. She still does it to this day. Once in a while, she'll go on a cruise for you, and it's a blessing because it's free. Because she works a lot of times. Because when she goes on a cruise with these people, she's got to be in touch, so that it's not all fun and games. But it's very good. It's very nice, and she goes on a lot of trips that way. She's built up this business for herself. She does a big job. She can do more, but she doesn't want to work so hard. And my son-in-law is a retired police officer, so he's got a pension, and he works for what's the name of the store? A Wegmans. He's very close with the Wegman family. Diane, my daughter-in-law, has her career as well. She teaches or takes care, not teaches, I guess, disabled children, but you have to have a world of patience. It's not an easy thing. And she amazes me sometimes that she do it so well. The mothers used to say, we want her. When they had a choice of who they had with their kids who were disabled, a disability, they wanted her. So that was very nice. It shows a sign that and she cares. She really cares for the children. So yeah, she's great. I wanted to be somebody brilliant. I never was. My kids are the most important thing in life to me. I could have done something different. It certainly would not be. It would have to come after losing Helene, because I can't think of life without her. Nothing different than what I'm doing now. I'm happy. That's it. That's a prediction I'm afraid to give, because I'm very, very, trying to think of the word, pessimistic, yes, about this world. Important thing I've learned about life is to enjoy it. If you're lucky enough to enjoy, walk around with a smile. Don't complain all the time. Some people, friends of mine, just nonstop complaint. They should be happy. They're alive, for God's sakes. We're in a wonderland. We live in Florida, for God's sakes. I sit by the pool every day. It's a very, very happy life. You got to be lucky. You can't always control what's going to happen to you, and you got to be lucky. Religion never played a major portion of my life. As a matter of fact, I was never bar mitzvahed because I had to work in my father's candy store, and my mother was dying, and so I had to work in a candy store, and religion was not of any great importance to me. I can't stand liars. I can't stand cheaters. Trying to do the best you can for friends or for people generally. I don't like these people just lie and cheat and how they can take advantage of somebody. I'm not that type. Tell them about choosing a career is what I told my son. I said, if you're going to go to school, or they can come out with a liberal arts degree, it's a dime a dozen. You'll get a job in an office, you'll become a supervisor to 3 girls or 4 girls, and I'll pay you nothing because they'll give you a title that you're a supervisor. You got to learn a skill. I don't care. You want to be, I said to my son, you want to be a doctor, it would be a struggle for me. But if you want to be a doctor, somehow or other, I'll get you through school and you'll walk out free and clear. He said, I don't like blood. I said, okay, how about an attorney? At the time, he was not that aggressive. I said, well, you're good at math, and how about accounting? Something to do with accounting. If you're an accountant, you always can do something. You can work for a corporation, you can work for the government, you can work for yourself, you can work at a little sideline to make extra money. There's always something that you can do. But you got to do something. You just can't say, okay, I'm graduating. Well, it's something, you can't worship money, but it's something that you need because you want to provide for your family. So, I mean, you can't, oh my God, my life without me making so much money. I was never that aggressive a businessman. So I was never going to be that successful. But enough to take care of my children and that you'll help my grandchildren or whoever else involved here. That was important to me, that my kids were taken care of. Pure luck. If you were lucky as I was, and had a woman like I had, you couldn't get any luckier. I mean, it wasn't a choice on my part. I wasn't brilliant. I just fell into with the right person. Wonderful, always smiling. Everybody was a friend. Everybody loved her. I was just lucky. Well, I was a father working. As a mother, I think the mother was trying to make sure they're well and taken care of, feeding them and such. But as a father, you try to steer them into some kind of career and with some sort of skill, whatever it may be, so that you can earn money. You don't have to be fully wealthy, but so you can earn, you got something to fall back on. You just can't say, oh, okay, I'll work in an office. Back to the same situation. Family comes first. Take care of your family. And if you're lucky enough to have a good family, if you're fortunate enough to have a good family, count your blessings and take care of them. I have a wonderful son, I have a wonderful daughter, and I'm blessed with it. My son gets very upset when I say things like that. He says, what about son-in-law and daughter-in-law? Son-in-law and daughter-in-law too.